Hi, everyone.
Hi,
It's
Faye.
Fee from Yay!
Special guest.
Special guest from Sydney, Australia. I'm so grateful to be able to come on and join you on TFF EMEA, and we have a really exciting session up next from the wizard of Tableau, Merlijn. So Merlijn is a Tableau certified professional doing things that are super crazy with Tableau, like using extensions for games or building Photoshop for Tableau. And in today's session, you're going to learn all about building games with Tableau APIs. Explore the possibilities of Tableau API extensions with this fun session. You're going to learn how you can build a game and more with this useful and versatile tool. So Merlijn, it's over to you and take it away.
All right, let me share my screen. So can you all hear me?
Loud
Yes.
and clear.
Great. All right, let me move this little pane out of the window and then we can start. Up to the top. Okay, great. All right, so welcome everyone to the session Level Up, Building Games with the Tableau Extensions API. Today I will show you more about the work I have been doing together with some other people at Infotopics, like building games in Tableau. And what I mean with games is what I'm going to show you right now. It's called BlowCraft, and it's a copy of Minecraft, the blocks building game, but then in a scatter plot, as you can see. And what I have been doing here is this is a scatter plot. And I have an extension right here. And as a scatter plot, this is just a non-functional graph. But if we click on the extension, this scatter plot becomes interactive and I can start moving around. So for example, I can jump and I can jump from the fringe logo and go down. And I can start moving around. So for example, I can go to the left with my arrow keys, and I can do very cool things like placing a block. So if I want to remove this block right here, or this one, I can remove it with Q. And if I want to add something like a redstone block, I can press the E button and I can add a redstone block, as you can see. And I can jump on side this block. All right, so that's a little introduction of the game. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit more about extensions and what they are. I'm going to introduce myself, and then we will go to the dashboard, how it has been built, how the code is working. I'll show you everything you need to build your own games in Tableau. All right. So first, a little introduction. My name is Merlijn Buit, as you pronounce it in Dutch. I'm 28 years old, as you can see in the top left line graph. It's a pretty stable trend. According to data from the internet, I've blended it to my age. I have only 54 years left to live. And from my current life, I work for 16% at Infotopics already, which is a Tableau Gold Partner in the Netherlands. I have a relationship for 9 years already, which is also a pretty stable trend you can see here. And I love to cycle in my spare time, which I did not do very much this year, but it's already 180 kilometers. I'm also a Tableau Zen Master for this year, which means that I'm one of the 30 people on the world and the only one in the Netherlands, which is a Zen Master. So that's pretty cool. So where did this all start? It was the Tableau conference in 2017 where I made this picture, and I was in the audience with some colleagues of me, and Tableau was introducing something new called the Tableau Extensions API. And with this API, you were able to do all kinds of extra functionality in your dashboard, like for example, build a inventory management extension, which could update the inventory of a product and visualize it back in your dashboard. But also a network graph was something they were showing, and some other very cool stuff. And I immediately know that this was going to be something very big for Tableau and for the community, for the product, to make it way more functional, to add functionality which you could never dream of, like Minecraft, for example, or something else. So to give it a little bit of a context, Michael Kovner had a really good quote at the last Tableau conference about what extensions are. And to give it a little summary, extensions are custom dashboard zones that can interact with the rest of the dashboard through the Extensions API. So what can you think about it? For example, if I want to connect and interact with business applications in Tableau directly, or if I want to interact with your data from Tableau dashboards, if I want to get quality insights and performance and usage of the dashboards, for example, or if I want to do two-way communication with web applications, for example, the updating of a inventory of a product inside your dashboard. But you can also create very cool vizzes, which are not directly possible to do in Tableau, like this one, the Sankey diagram. This is a Tableau visualization built with the Extensions API. And it's fully interactive. It has the same functionality as a Tableau visual, but it has been built with the Extensions API. And also this radar chart, for example. So what are those? So when this was announced at the Tableau conference, I became very enthusiastic about this new functionality, and together with my colleague Chaling, we had the vision that this is going to be very big, and we want to build extensions as much as possible. This is going to be our future, let's say it like that. And we started working on building extensions, and one of the extensions is an extension you often see at demos, but you can also download it from the Tableau gallery, and it's called Show Me More. And when we started building it almost a year ago, I think, yeah, it's a year ago, we shared it with Tableau, like, okay, we are building a new extension, what do you think of it? And they were really enthusiastic about it, and they asked us if they could use it as a demo on the big Tableau conference in London when they were announcing the Tableau extensions gallery. So that's what they did, and they used our Show Me More. It's a top left image. They used our extension Show Me More to build a Sankey diagram live on stage with just 3 or 4 clicks with the mouse. And the audience went crazy about it. So that was really cool to do. And a half year later, at the Tableau conference in New Orleans, they again showed our Sankey diagram on the big stage as a demo for the Extensions API. So that's something we're really proud of, that the product we were making just in the Netherlands was being showed all over the world at the conference as an example of what you could do with the Extensions API. So we went a step further and we decided to build a new platform called Apps for Tableau. And this platform is supporting, and it's with this platform we are building extensions, but also other tools like powerful tools around Tableau to help you get more insight and do more cool things with Tableau as a developer or user of Tableau. So for example, if you go to our website, you can also see all kinds of blogs about things we are doing, like the Minecraft or the Mario, I will show later. And but also the extensions we are building, and you can use it in your dashboards. So that's Apps for Tableau, and that's also the base of the work I do every day. And last year, it was at the Tableau conference, just before the Tableau conference, my colleague Chaling and I were thinking about something which we could shock the world with, let's call it like that. And we thought, okay, let's try to build a game in Tableau, a fully functional game in Tableau, and let's see if we can make it work actually, work like a game. So we built Mario. We built Mario in a scatter plot, and we tried to add all functionality you're used to from Mario, like the coin collection, the jumping, the little Goombas. And we built it in around 1 day. So at the end of the day, we sent a little GIF image to Tableau, said like, okay, here's a GIF. This is something we've built. What do you think? And they responded like, okay, that's pretty cool. You have iframed Mario in a Tableau dashboard. That's okay, funny. But then we responded, no, this is not an iframe. This is a scatter plot with a functional Mario inside. and then their heads exploded, and it went pretty crazy on Twitter and on the Tableau community. And I will give you a little demo about it right now. So let's see. So this is the extension. Let's see, there's a console. This is the extension. This is actually the dashboard, sorry. And what as you can see, is it's just a scatter plot like this. It has some marks inside and nothing special actually. And if we go back, there's a little block here. It's called click to load the extension. This is actually the heart of this dashboard. So this thing makes this scatter plot smart and interactive. So when I click it, the music will start. I hope you can hear it. And when I use this input field, I can use my arrow keys on my keyboard to walk around. I can jump. And I can collect the coins. And as you can see, my coin is updating. I've collected 1 coin. And I can walk around. And if I hit a Goomba, I will die, of course. So I have a cool short key to go to the end. It's I don't know. This is a different keyboard. I think it's this one. Okay, there it is. So when I go to the end, the game will take over, and I will run to the castle. All right, so this is the I will remove this one. So this is the base of the work we are doing, and we also presented it at the Tableau conference 2018, and we showed there how we have built it in a very summarized presentation of 10 minutes, the techniques we have used to do things like this. And today I will show you more about a similar engine, but then based on Minecraft. So last year we also did the hackathon at the Tableau conference, which is great to attend to. So I will advise everyone here to attend to the hackathon, to talk to other people in the community, to learn about all the APIs and all the stuff Tableau is doing, and you can do whatever you want. So we have developed a Pac-Man, and it's a Pac-Man related to Netflix, and they were teasing about the new Stranger Things series. So we gave it a little Stranger Things theme in dark, and it's the upside down Pac-Man. And you can actually play Pac-Man inside, and it has the sounds, and it has the little enemies walking around, and they will try to catch you. And we won a Pirate Award with it, which is actually pretty cool. I'm on the stage there presenting it and taking the award. And below is my colleague Charling, which is one of the builders of this extension, together with the T-Rex. All right, so the thing we're going to talk about is BlowCraft, and this is my latest extension, and this is a fully functional Minecraft in Tableau with the blocks building and the blocks removing, and it has some very cool features I want to show you how I've done it. So let me go to the next sheet. So I have 4 parts I want to talk about. The first one is a live demo, and then I want to show you how I've built up the data. And then I want to show you how the dashboard has been built. And at last, I want to show you some of the code. And I hope you can follow the code, but don't be scared about the code. I've divided it into little blocks, and these blocks are all pretty understandable. And if not, that's also okay. But I'll try to show you how this all has been built. So let's go to the live demo. So this is the Minecraft. It's a little bit different from the image you just saw because I've tried to improve the performance by doing some additional tricks. But what you can do is you can walk around with WASD keys, and you have a little cursor, as you can see right here. This little cursor there, and you can move that cursor around with your arrow keys on your keyboard. So I can move it around, and when I hit the E button, I can add a block to the dashboard, to the viz, and when I hit the Q button, I can remove it again. So those are all functions you've never seen before in a Tableau visualization, like adding a mark or removing a mark. So how have I done this? That's the big question, of course. So let me go to the first part, the data. So the data is I think it's the engine and the way that adding blocks and removing blocks is possible in this game. And to give you a little example of how the data is actually looking, this is actually how the data is looking in my data set, and I will show you my alternate flow I've been building to create this data set. But as you can see, I have a grid from it's starting at 0, 0 right here, and it ends on 50, 50 right there. So the level is 50 pixels of 50x in the width and 50y in the height. And I have a mark. So for every item in the game. So for example, this bookshelf is present on every XY coordinate you can imagine in this game. And it has a unique ID. So for example, this one has an ID of 112,480. And this one has an ID of 2,275. So if we, for example, change this, you will get to, for example, another type, we will get a different grid. And how have I created this? I started like this. I have a raster, a grid, and this grid is from 0 to 50, and I've joined it to itself. So you get a full outer join, and you get a grid of 50, 50 pixels. And it starts at 0 to 50, 1 to 50, 2 to 50, 3 to 50. And then I also have a little sheet with all my blocks. This is my smooth stone, cobblestone, those are all the blocks. And the blocks have some properties, like, for example, a collision, because a flower, for example, is something you can walk through, but a block like a bedrock or just a smooth stone is something you can't walk through. You can stand on it. So that's a collision. It also has a size, it has an index, and it has a destroyable, yes or no. So for example, if you look at the bedrock, which is the block at the bottom of the level, this is something in Minecraft, you can't remove it, so it has a destroyable of 0. And if I join this to this grid of 50 by 50 pixels, I get 50 by 50 pixels for every block. And then I've added a unique ID for every row of data. This is something missing in BlowCraft, so please Tableau add it. And I've selected the correct fields, and I've unioned some default data below it because I need a mark for the bottom of Steve and a mark for the top of Steve, and I need a mark for my hitbox to make them appear in my visualization. And the result is just a data set. So that's the flow of the data and how the data has been prepared. And if we look at the dashboard, for example, I have here my little, I hope you can see it, but this is the bottom of Steve, this is the top of Steve. Oh, and I have a little crosshair right here. And if we go to the level, the game, you can see that these are all blocks. So we have all kinds of blocks here. But that's not what this dashboard makes it so funny. There are a few parts which makes this dashboard really funny. So the first one is this level code. It's right here. And this is a big string. It's actually a parameter with all kinds of ideas inside. So if I, for example, remove an idea from this list, like this, you see that the redstone block is disappearing. So if I add it again, it's appearing again. And if I remove it from this parameter, I will remove it from the dashboard. So that's the engine of this, that's the idea of this Minecraft game. And when I go to this dashboard, I have a little filter here. It's called Placed Blocks. And I can actually show it right here. If I add it to this dashboard, this grid, for example, it's not doing anything. But if I, for example, take this 95650, add it to my level example, and I have to add it right here. Oh, no. I have to add the pipes around it. I get only this block in my grid. And if I remove it here, it's gone. So this is the engine, how it's working. And if we take a look in this calculation, it's the level example parameter. And if it contains the idea from my row of data with 2 pipes in front of it, or because I want to make sure that every ID is a unique value. And if I, for example, do contains, and I'm searching for 5, for example, 5 is also contains in 500 and 5,000. So that's why I'm using pipes to make a unique number. And the zeros are the values for Steve and the crosshair. So that's how this level is working. And if we take a look at here, there are two sheets. One is called Block Finder Add, and we also have a sheet called Block Finder Remove. And those two sheets are here to help me to find the number, the ID I have to add to this level code in my extension. So when I, for example, move around with my mouse, with my cursor here, you can see it moving around. You also see that my block finder is changing. So what this means is that the ID of the redstone selected in my inventory sheet at the position of my cursor has an ID of 12281. And when I move it one to the right, the ID is 12326. So when I press the E button on my keyboard, I'm adding this number to my level parameter. And then it becomes visible in the scatter plot. But when I want to remove it, I also have a helper sheet for that. And that's this sheet. So this sheet is looking at every possible block which is on the position of the cursor. And for example, the 1, 2, 3 is also inside. 1, 2, 3, 2, 6. It's somewhere here. It's right here, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 2, 6. And when I press the Q button, I'm reading this information in the extension, and I'm removing every ID you are seeing here from the level parameter. So when I press the Q button, it's getting removed from my parameter. So this is how this is working, and this is how this extension is making it so funny to play with, because now I can do anything I want. I can collect blocks, I can just walk around, and I can build my own level. Actually, I can build my own little house. I can build everything I want. All right, so that's how the dashboard is working. So this is just an inventory sheet. There are two lists divided on collision, yes or no. So these are not non-collidable items like a flower or a furnace or a planks, which is a background. And these are all the blocks like inside a lamp, for example, all things you can place and you can't walk through. And with dashboard actions, I'm hooking it all together. When I click on something here, you see that this one is empty, but when I click on the stairs, for example, I'm filtering this sheet. All right, so that's how the dashboard is working. If you have a question about that, go ahead, put it in the chat. We can also do it on the end. And then we can continue to talk about the code if you like. So let me just put up the chat for a second to see if there's any chat before I'm continuing. Oh, I don't know. No chat, I see. All right.
Hi, Merlijn, it's Fee. Thanks so much for a great presentation. I have a question for you. How did you get into building extensions? What was the process that you went through to decide that's something that I want to get involved in? And then how did you actually build the skill set or capability behind it?
All right, that's a good question. At InfoTopics, I was a developer for 2 years already. I was building portals for Tableau, and I was doing things with the JavaScript API to embed dashboards into portals. And often customers were asking us all kinds of questions about how we could improve Tableau, how we could certain things in Tableau that were not really possible. So mostly we had to give them the answer, I'm sorry, that's not possible, or I don't know, we have to do something in code around Tableau. And if you want to do something around Tableau, you have to set up a web server and all kinds of stuff to make it possible. And that was really a big step for some customers. And they said, like, okay, we're fine like this. And when the extensions API came, we were able to do things inside Tableau. So we don't have to have a portal around it and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's why I am building extensions, because it makes the possibilities are endless. Let's say it like this. And my history of how I got into this is that I have a technical IT background. I've studied business IT and management. So it's a mixture of business and IT. And I've learned programming together with my colleague Charling. He's learned me a lot of programming. And that's how I got into the extensions. And I started working with on very simple extensions, like a little refresh button, and then it can become a little bigger, a little bit bigger. And it ended up like show me more. And then we went a step further and we built games. So that's a little bit of the history on how we started it.
Well, thank you so much. I don't think there's any other questions that have come through on the Q&A, and congratulations on being a Tableau Zen this year. It's a fantastic achievement.
All right, thank you. So let me go ahead and show you the code. So don't be scared, it's just a little bit of code, but this is the heart of the extension, and this is what makes the dashboard interactive. And I will show you it here. I'm using Microsoft Visual Studio Code, which is a great code editor. It gives you a lot of functionality in building extensions. And I'm using just JavaScript to build this extension. And I will go through this big piece of code step by step, and I will just highlight the things which are very important for you to know if you want to build an extension or if you want to know something more about coding. So don't be scared by this big piece of code. Let me go through it one by one. So if you want to build an extension, there's one line which is the most important line, and that's this line. It's called the initialize async. And what this line is doing is it is initializing the extensions API, actually loading it into your code. And when it's done loading, you can start doing things with it. For example, I want to have the dashboard, and the dashboard is in my extension variable, and inside the dashboard content, I can get the dashboard. And I also want a list of my parameters. So those are things I can retrieve with the extensions API. And I can do that with the dashboard.getParameters. And this will give me a list of all the parameters in the dashboard. And when I go through these parameters, I can make all kinds of variables with it. So that's not really important, but I'm collecting the parameter for Steve, I'm collecting the parameter for the level, and I'm collecting the parameter for the hitbox, the little crosshair. And what I'm also doing is getting the sheet which contains the level. So dashboard.worksheets, and on the first item in the array is my sheet, my level sheet. And if I translate it to the dashboard, that is this level. This is the first worksheet in my array. So he is actually retrieving this sheet. Okay, so that's the most important part of the extension. Initialize it and then start doing things you like getting a dashboard, getting a name, getting sheets, getting filters, do anything you want. So the second part is building the level. So I'm actually getting the summary data from the sheet, and by doing a get summary data async. And what I'm doing is the following part. I'm actually retrieving this data. So it's a summary data. It's a lot of data, actually. I'm retrieving it, and I want it in my extension so I can do things with it. So this is the data I'm asking from Tableau. And that's this part. And I'm creating some kind of beautiful array with it so I can go through it very easily. And the second part is I'm creating Steve. Steve is not existing yet in the code, so I'm creating Steve, and Steve has an initial X and Y value. It has a direction, if Steve is moving to the left or to the right, if he's jumping, yes or no, if he's on the ground, and if he should update. And I'm doing the same for my hitbox. So my hitbox is the little crosshair. It has an X and Y position. It has a direction I'm not really using. It has an action like adding or removing, and it has a should update. So these are all initial parameters I need for my extension to work. And the second part I'm doing is creating some helper functions, because when Steve is moving around, I need to know if he can move to the left or to the right. So when I, for example, moving to the left in my game, and I'm finding a little block here, it's like the little ground block here, I can't move any further because Steve can't walk through grass. He has to jump on it. So I've created a little some helper functions which are retrieving a block, and what these functions are doing is they give me information about a block on a specific point. So if I'm asking for a block, for example, this little grass block, he says, okay, there's a block or there's no block on that position. So you can walk to it or you can't walk through it. So those are little helper functions. And then, of course, we have to do something when pressing a key. So when I'm pressing, for example, my W or my S or my A or my D key, my extension has to do something. It has to do something like moving or doing nothing or adding a block. And those are called events. So I have a little input field in my extension. That's actually this field. You can see right here, it's a little blinking line. And when I press on a button in this input field, I'm updating some values in my extension. So when I press on the A button, for example, we can go to the extension and let's see what it's doing. So I'm looking at my event key code, and when I'm pressing A, that's the 65, that's just code. And if I press it, I want that the direction of Steve is left and that Steve is moving. So I want those values to update so I can do things with it. And the same counts for example, pressing the E button. I want the hitbox action to be add, and I want it to update something. So that's actually this part. We also have a reset button in the extension. So when I press the reset button, the extension should do something. So for example, if I press the reset button, it's updating the position of Steve and the position of the hitbox, and it's updating Steve's values. So Steve is looking forward and Steve is on the X parameter, we're looking here, and it's on the Y parameter. We just updated here. So let's try that. If I hit on this reset button, I update the parameter and Steve will just update. And essentially, a game is nothing more than a loop. So the code is always going from the top to the bottom when you run it. And what it's actually doing is it's creating a function called update. And it's calling that function right here. So it's calling it here for the first time. It's getting called. And what it's doing is it's calling a function called update the hitbox, and then a function called update Steve. And then it's setting a timeout of 150 milliseconds, and it calls itself again. So this function is getting called every 150 milliseconds. So when I do something every 150 milliseconds, it's getting updated, like pressing a key or doing something. So that's how Steve is walking through the level. I can speed this up, or I can speed it down. So in a real game, like a game built by Microsoft or something, this is 60 frames per second or something, or maybe more, 100 or even more. So, but in Tableau, we have the Extensions API, and it's not built for games, of course. So I have to have a timeout of 150 milliseconds, which is roughly 8 or 6 frames per second. So that's why Steve is not moving that fast, but we have to retrieve a lot of data, do a lot of parsing, and then go back to the extension. Okay, so that's the game loop. And this is actually the most important part of the game. And this is actually a game, if you want to say it like this. And if we want to look at Steve, so one of the functions we are calling here is update Steve. And if I look at the code for Steve, I'm doing a few things. Like the first one is ask Steve to move to the left or the right. And the other one is see if Steve is jumping, yes or no. So let's look at this function, the update Steve. The first thing I'm doing is setting a X and Y variable to the current position of Steve. And then if I press, for example, the A button or the D button, which is moving to the left or to the right, I'm plussing, adding 1 to the X, or I'm subtracting a 1 from the X. And I say that Steve should update. But we don't know if Steve can walk to that specific place in the extension, because there could be a block. what I just told. So what I'm doing is I'm calling one of the extension helper functions, getBlock, and I'm putting in my fields I want to move to. So for example, I want to move 1x to the left. And I'm also doing the same for the head because Steve is 2 blocks high. And if those blocks are returning true, so if they say, yes, there is a block at that position, I say, okay, Steve, you have to go. You can't move there. You should stay on the position you are. Don't do anything. Just stay there. You can't move. And I'm doing actually the same for if he's jumping. And the jumping part is pretty cool because jumping is actually some kind of force. So when I'm pressing the W button, you can see he's moving up. And after 2 blocks, he's moving down again. So I can do it again. He's moving up and he's moving down again. So there's some kind of gravity being simulated here. And we have to go back to this part. Let's see, where is it? 1.1. It's here. So when I'm pressing the W button, I say that Steve is going to jump, and he can jump two blocks high. And there it is. So if Steve is jumping, I'm adding 1 to the Y. So he's going 1 up, of course. And if he's not jumping, I'm subtracting 1 from his Y. So he's falling down. And what I'm also doing is looking at the block above his head or below his head. And I'm checking if that block is, if there's a block. So for example, if he's hitting his head while he's jumping. And if he's hitting his head, I'm removing, I stop jumping. So I put the jump on 0. But if he's landed on something, I've put the Steve grounded on true. So Steve is on the ground. And I'm updating his Y position. And the last part we are doing is updating his sprite, so his shape actually. So if Steve is moving to the left, I want a shape where he's moving to the left. And if he's moving to the right, I want a shape where he's moving to the right. And if he's moving to the front, I want him to look at us. So for example, if I move to the right here, you will see him moving to the right. It's very small. And if I press down, he's waving at us a little bit right there. And all those information is being pushed to the with the extensions API back to the dashboard. So what I'm doing is I'm from my parameters, I want the parameter Steve, and I want to change the value of the parameter in my Tableau dashboard with a sprite, which is right, left, or front, a X position, and a Y position. And it's all inside one parameter because updating one parameter instead of 3 parameters, for example, is faster because you don't have to do 3 calls. You only have to do 1 call to the dashboard. So if we take a look at that specific parameter, we can take a look at it. Let's see, there's Steve. You will see that Steve is looking at the front. His X position is 27 and his Y position is 16. I can move around. What you can see is he's looking to the right. His X position is 28 and his Y position is 16. Okay, so that's what this extension is doing. And we are doing the same for the hitbox, so the little block. But there are only 2 parts of code here which are special for the hitbox because we have a piece where you can add something to the dashboard and we have a piece where you can remove something from the dashboard. And at the end, this information is being pushed to the Tableau dashboard, of course. So if we take a look at the add functionality, the other things are not really important here right now. So what I'm doing is I'm reading the level parameter, which is this big line of all these IDs. I'm reading it in my code and I'm splitting it on the comma. So it's becoming an array. And when it's an array in code, I can do cool things with it. So one of the things is if I want to add something to this array, to this blocks level parameter, I'm looking at my dashboard worksheet and the third actually worksheet in this list of worksheets. I'm asking the summary data. And when I'm done, I'm going to loop through those rows of data. So what I'm doing is when I click, for example, when I want to add a block to the level, like a little stair, I'm looking at this sheet. This is the third sheet in my worksheets. I'm looking at this this row of data. There's only one row of data. That's this row. And what I'm doing is I'm adding that specific row to my blocks array. So what I'm doing is if my ID, if there is a row of data inside this worksheet actually, block array.push. So I'm pushing it into the array. I'm adding it to my array. And when I'm done, I will update the array in the Tableau dashboard right here. Parameter.level change value async blocks array. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, Tableau, I have a new value for your level parameter. It's this value, blocks array. So in that array is a new ID, and therefore the dashboard will update and show a new block in the game. But I can also remove a specific block from the array, and I'm doing the opposite to this sheet. I'm actually removing it. That's the splice function in JavaScript. So what I'm doing is I'm looping through this sheet, the third one. So here I'm looking at the second one. Here I'm looking at the third one, which is this one. I'm asking all the summary data, which is all those rows. And what I'm doing is I'm looping through all those rows and I'm removing them one by one from this array of level IDs. And when he finds one, he will remove it from the array. And then it updates in the Tableau parameter, and we're done. So if you put that code all together into one big piece of code, of course, this could be separated into all kinds of code, but you get this one big array. And the most important part is the update, which is running every 150 milliseconds. So that's how the game is working, and that's how you can play and build with this Minecraft game. All right, so let me jump down and go back to the sheet. So that was the code. And I'm really curious if you have any questions about this extension, about extensions in general, about Minecraft, maybe about Mario, about programming. Just ask me anything you like, and I will try to answer it. Okay.
Thanks very much, Merlijn. So there's one question here from Stephen Zhang. Great presentation. It's a smart way of using parameters. How scalable are the extensions? I see that there's data transfer, calculations inside the code, and in Tableau. Where is the bottleneck?
Where's the bottleneck? Let me start with the last part, the bottleneck. So as you can see, our little Steve is not really fast in walking. So what you can see is when I walk around, he is like doing a little bit of there's a little bit of a delay. So the bottleneck of the extension is the amount of data we can retrieve from the dashboard and push back to the dashboard, and how fast that information is. So every time I'm calling, I'm asking Tableau what's inside the level code parameter, for example, I have to wait a few milliseconds. And when I'm pushing it back, I have to wait a few milliseconds. So that's the big bottleneck right now in the extensions API, and that's because of JavaScript. And it's not really built to do real-time things like this. This is really crazy. But if it's scalable, yes, this is scalable. Because it's code, you can do anything you like. As long as if you can program, you can do anything you like. So this is just a really, in my perspective, it's a really simple extension. It's just it has a really specific purpose. But if you want to build something way bigger for your company, or to do something you like, updating an inventory, or do all kinds of crazy integrations with your CRM or whatever, you can do that with extensions.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Merlijn, for sharing that with us. There's no other questions that have come through on the Q&A, but great work. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and see you around.
Thank you, Merlijn, and thank you, Fee, for making a guest appearance. Next up, we've got David, who's going to be on at 12. So we've got approximately 6 minutes. So we'll see you back then.